Hi, welcome back. Still up on the main land, and we've just got a RV repair video for you today. We've had a water leak in our storage bay behind the water heater that Jason's been shop vacuuming up and sopping up for a few days now until we were able to diagnose it. Our water heater in our 2020 Van Lee Volano is a Dometic Atwood water heater, and that means it's an aluminum casing around it that absorbs the corrosion. Some other RVs have suburban water heaters that have an anode rod in them. You've probably seen YouTube videos of people pulling out their anode rod and it's all corroded and then they replace it. Well, ours doesn't have that because the aluminum casing is supposed to act as the anode rod. So the aluminum will not rust. However, there are some parts of the Atwood water heater that are not aluminum, and those have a chance of corroding, especially around screw holes or threadings or things like that. So I did a little research, and apparently there's about 4 different things that could cause your water heater to leak. Now, this is after you've already ruled out that the leak is not in your supply lines. There's a cold and hot supply line into and out of the water heater that have fittings on them. You know, some old or original RV fittings are plastic, they're flimsy, they can easily leak, and we've had to replace and repair those before. So we've ruled out that the leak is not coming from the cold and hot lines, it's something within the water heater. So it's going to be one of 4 things. The first thing to check is your pressure relief valve. Now, anytime you empty water out of your water heater, you have to flip that valve to release the pressure before you empty the water heater. Otherwise, hot water is going to shoot out at you. So it could be leaking there. Ours is not. The second place to check is the actual drain valve. Now, ours has a plastic valve on it, and we can see that there's no leakage around there. And when we take the drain valve off and empty the water heater, everything seems to be working fine there. The third thing to check is your heating element. That's in the back of the water heater, and you can't really see that until you pull the whole thing out. It could be that the heating element itself is defective, or the threading where it screws into the water heater might be corroded. That's one of the non-aluminum parts. And then the fourth thing is that just the casing, different parts of the RV casing might be corroded and rusty, and that's what's leaking. So we're trying to diagnose what is going on here. But first thing we need to do is get the water heater out of the RV.
And we're gonna shut off the power and propane and stuff before, truly pulling this out. But right now I'm just doing the screws. This is a over 5-year-old unit, but also we're full-time. So whatever life cycle RV water heaters have, using them full-time, I think is beyond what is kind of planned. So I'm guessing we're having some things that are now end of life. All right, so I've got all the screws out and kind of wiggled this, but just and you should do your own safety stuff. But what we did is we've shut off the propane at the source, and then also bled it out or burned it off with our stove in the RV. So anything in the line, got consumed, it's all gone, that's shut off. We've shut off the breaker because this is both a propane and a 110 AC heating unit. So high voltage, 110 comes to this, as well as 12 volt. We shut off the breaker, but I'm not gonna just get in there and do stuff without testing, with my voltage meter and all that stuff. But you do your safety stuff, do not follow us. And before we pull this out any further, we're gonna empty the water with this plug right here. I just want to dump this elsewhere. And we've got this faucet open inside the RV so that's so there's not a vacuum, so the air can flow through.
And before you open this plastic valve down here, always make sure to release the pressure here, otherwise it'll shoot out hot water really fast.
And now we're going to take off the propane feed line. All right, and probably a good idea to put some tape over this to protect those threads from junk getting in there. So I'll do that before going much further. All right.
And just push it back through the hole.
Yeah, and we'll look at what stuff looks like inside here at some point too. All right, so coming from the park side, at least in the backside bay door, is an easier view. From up underneath the water heater seemed to be the source. And then it drips down and it flows here, and we've been shutting the water off, vacuuming this up with our shop vac, and kind of keeping ahead of it. We have the classic setup here of the live YouTube video while doing it. Every RVer knows this setup right here. So this junction box, and we've shut the power off, we tested it, was mounted way over here for some reason, but there's tons of slack in the feed line. So I just unhooked it from where it was, and now I've got lots of slack. But the other thing we discovered, and it's just part of RV construction, I think, even good companies probably, who knows. This is wired into a shared circuit in the electrical panel. The labeled breaker for this hot water heater goes to something, maybe, but not to this. This is hooked into a set of plugs. So they wired this directly into a different circuit, and it's not what's labeled. So who knows where the mistake happened there. But this, I think, should be on its own dedicated circuit, and it's not, and it's mislabeled in the panel. So that's why you check stuff. You do not trust anything when you flip a switch one way or the other. All right, we've got all the slack accounted for. So here's the cold water feed that goes in, and here's the hot water feed that goes out. They very handily gave you a way to unscrew the hot here. They very non-handily didn't give a way to unscrew the cold. Who knows why?
So we're removing this electrical box now that we can see it and get to it to see if we can see the heating element behind there.
Here, look.
Oh, wow.
So that seems like that's a clue.
Yeah.
So maybe we only have to replace this heating element,
well,
or the threading or whatever.
It said if the threading to the water heater was corroded, then you have to replace the whole thing.
Which we don't mind doing, by the way. We've talked about on-demand propane water heater, so that you'd have kind of endless hot water just on propane, which was sort of a plan all along if this ever end of life. So kind of depends. If it's more than $100 for that, we're definitely replacing it. All right, so we've got this pulled out, and we're gonna kind of now test it because it can still be hooked up. But first, I reattached the gas line. It's still hooked up to 110, still hooked up to 12 volt. I shut the pressure valve. I'm gonna put this plug in. And first, I just wanna pressurize this with water and see if it's just obvious where it's dripping. And then if we need to, we'll fire it up, because maybe the heating of the expansion is what pushes the water out wherever it is. But it sure looks like we found the culprit.
So Jason's about to turn the water pump on inside, and we'll see what happens. Look, something's dripping, but it's not from that corroded part. It's from this hot water fitting. Nothing's dripping down here.
So you think that I could fix it there?
I mean, that is a drip. It might not be the only drip.
All right, well, let me try fixing that.
Jason did look at those fittings the other day when we were trying to diagnose this, and we didn't see any drips there. So it's possible that just when we pulled the water heater out just now, that line came loose a little bit, and now it's dripping. Never assume that it's only one drip if you have a leak. It might be multiple places.
But I'm gonna see if just tightening this, because sometimes, and I may have never gotten to this one because I've retightened and replaced a bunch of these. All right, my extra crimping of this, just a little bit, at least temporarily stopped that. Again, we really don't know if that was the issue, a new issue.
So we've hooked the propane line back up. I've just got my propane tester out here to make sure that there's no leaks. We're turning on the propane tank and letting that gas flow through before he turns the actual water heater on with the propane. See, the pilot light is ignited. Now we'll let that heat up and see if any drips start once the water is heated. Something started dripping through the crack in the table. See that drip?
We're probably gonna replace this regardless, so it kind of doesn't, there's not a lot of risk. But we're gonna take this off just to see if there's like rust pinholes or something on the bottom. Interesting.
All right, we got it up on some blocks so that Jason could lift it and I could get that styrofoam off. We don't see any obvious leaks.
So I think that might have just been the water that was pooled and held up in the in the styrofoam.
All right, now we're turning the water pump back on, and we're going to fire up the propane heater again and see if we've got any leaks. All right, we can finally see it. There's a small pinhole leak right at the front of the tank, right here. You can see it hitting the table.
All right, so we found the culprit, and it wasn't this drip here, which again, we may have caused, or that may have also been going on, but it turned out we really did need to take everything apart and get this off to see what was going on. And we even thought, oh, it looks like everything's fine, but there was a little bit of water Lisa kept noticing, like, that might just be pooled. We'd wipe it up. And then finally she noticed this little pinhole stream coming out. And that's your sign, not only to replace it, period, but, oh, that's just the first one. It's corroding inside. And so these don't have a long life cycle. Even when you're not using them full time, they're, what, 7 to 8 years maybe, is how, at least how they talk about it. We've used this 5.5 constantly, therefore, whatever, yeah, it's worn out. All right, we're ready to pull this fully out. We've drained everything, so gas disconnected, cut the 12-volt lines, the 110 line we had cut before with shutting it down. I cut the cold feed, and this already had a swivel connector here. So now I can just get this out of the way. It's a lot lighter without water in it. All right, so we got all our plumbing set up, and we made it so this was more disconnectable and reconnectable. So everything is undoable, so you can take the whole unit out, including the electrical. I put plug style paddle connectors on the ends of the wires, and also in a sense upgraded how the plumbing was. So one of the things that a lot of RV plumbing does, though maybe some of the better models now are doing a better job with this, is they connect this flexible PVC, flexible tubing, and then have rigid PEX, and they just put a connector in between them, and really there's no such thing. Here's a good example of the difference. This is PEX, or 4 PEX. It's just got, you know, some ribs that when you do the right kind of clamping piece down in that, it catches. And then for the flexible, it's supposed to be barbed, whether it's plastic or brass. And so right here, this really isn't a great connection. I'm not going to change it right now because it works. However, over here, I made this the right connection. And then the way to go from one to the other is with a swivel, just a swivel connector, I believe, that then allows you to have a piece in between or screw them together without having the wrong interior ribs or barbs. So like I said, I made these all so it can just be screwed in and out. So there's the hot.
And what kind of water heater is this?
It's a tankless on demand. So this is propane only. Of course, there's a 12-volt system that comes to it just for switching it on and off, and also for the controller. But this has no 110. It doesn't really have a tank in it. There might be the smallest of reservoirs as the water's going through, but essentially it just comes on and heats the water as you need it, which means endless showers. This piece right here was in the system before, so we're keeping it. It looks like it's a backflow stopper valve. So actually I'm using this as a connector as well between the flexible hot water line that feeds the hot water in the whole RV and this right here. All right, I'm gonna turn the water supply on just to see what's going on.
We're a little worried about this lever here bouncing down the road.
Yeah, even if it was a flexible straight in, it would still be weight on there. But I may put something that sort of supports it from bouncing up and down as much. So this is all new, and this is the proper, you know, PEX to a PEX style, where it's the ridge, not the barbed. And Yeah, I've got a tool that tightens those down. So that's all proper. And then this is also a proper barbed style that then I use this clamp on. So as Lisa showed in the previous video, I put in this 12 volt little mini panel to do extra 12 volt wiring. And that's what we did for this new RV hot water heater. So I just added the third spot. I'm gonna put this 5 amp blade fuse in there. All right, so we're going to plug in our 12 volt, and you should never trust the colors of wires, especially with RVs, can mean absolutely nothing. But also, there's not always one standard of like red means this, black means that, and white means another thing. So we know that our 12 volt panel, that the way I've wired it is red is positive, black is negative. So we know that. These are then labeled on the actual tankless heater, and very conveniently, black is positive, which is black is negative, and there is no red, there's white, and this white is negative. So just make sure you're hooking them up correctly, and thankfully they put a label, but also just for a little extra visual, I've put red and black electrician's tape on the ones that match up, and here we go. So what actually matters is it's positive to positive, negative to negative. The colors are secondary. All right, everything's hooked up. Propane, water lines, 12 volt, and now the 12 volt controller. So let's see what happens when I turn it on. We have something. I got this hooked up. Let's turn the hot water on. Hear it?
Mm-hmm.
Fire it up.
Again, it's blowing hot out of there.
Yeah, out of the exhaust.
Oh, now it says 108 output, 117, 122.
I'm waiting for this, warming up in my hand. Oh yeah. Nice. All right. We're 90% done. And whenever you're 90% done, you're half done.
It only took 7 hours.
We took our time. we were
This is an important project to get right.
Yeah. Very cool.
Just finishing up this water heater project by putting the door on. We had to buy a special door that goes with this tankless water heater because the water heater is smaller than the original one that came with the RV. So these two things came together, and we put some butyl tape behind the door, and now Jason's just screwing it on. So a great project to get done. Hope you enjoyed it. See you next time. Bye.